I'm gonna just start recording. All right, we are now live. Welcome back to Clay and Company podcast. We have what should be my co-host here. Actually, is we got Garen Phillips. Garen, I don't even know. You're definitely you're in the top probably 5 for me of most interesting people I've ever met, which is kudos to you.
Thanks.
So super interesting person. I guess one way to describe you would be a successful YouTuber. So a couple 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, an entrepreneur at heart, and a former paintball maker, paintball gun maker. No, seriously though, how would you describe yourself? Because I was trying to think about like what would be a good intro for Garen, and I was like, man, there's so many angles I could take it. What's your self description for these guys?
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know at this point anymore. YouTube, I guess you could call my day job, but I do I'm building a life insurance agency right now. I just sold a real estate property. I teach people the stock market. I do life coaching on the side. I'm okay. Let me put it this way. I'm a guy who got tired of being broke and living paycheck to paycheck. So I started figuring out how to make passive money. And that's my thing.
Yeah. And not only that, you were able to do it. And then also you try to help other people do the same thing. You educate a lot of people on finance too. Like a lot of your big videos are finance related.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah. My 2 philosophies on YouTube is actually Carl Jung, fix the problem of the individual, fix the problem of society, and then apply that at capitalism, and you make a lot of money helping people figure out their problems.
That's the truth. Okay, so for people that don't know, first of all, I'm in Austin, Texas. Garen moved to Austin briefly. I would call it a stint in Austin.
Yeah.
He was here, like 5-6 months maybe?
No, it's longer than that. It's probably 10 months. Is this your first
shit.
podcast? Because technically my first podcast was shot right behind you. This is
I think this is like the 9th or 10th episode.
But nice.
Yeah, me and Garen did a podcast for Garen's podcast right here with a different angle. So if you guys want to go see a different angle of my apartment, you guys should go watch that.
Yeah, it's still not uploaded. So yeah, dude, a lot's happened. How was the ice storm? How was it for you?
Dude, I'm glad. So you texted me during it. Like we had the snowpocalypse here where Texas just shut down for an entire week. And I almost came and stayed at that hostel with you for a minute, but Nate and Nate and Leah, did I ever introduce you to them?
I think so, maybe.
Okay, so Nate and Leah, they had a family friend that lived like 30 minutes south of Austin, and they were like, hey, they have power and water. We're gonna go stay over there. And then so they offered to come pick me up, and I have a motorcycle, so I was stranded. I was like, yeah, like come get me. And so then I was like, okay, yeah, please come get me. So then they came over and picked me up, and we went to their family friend's house, and they actually ran out of electricity too, but then it came back on, and then they ran out of water. So we ended up staying an entire week with those people pretty much.
Nice.
And they were awesome. It was like some of the nicest people I've ever met.
Nice. I'm glad you were good then. Yeah, the first day, well, you're from Ohio. The first day I wake up, and I was in the transition of moving to San Diego, which is where I'm at now. But I was sleeping on a friend's couch for a few days to sort stuff out. And then the ice storm happened, or the snowstorm happened. And I wake up and the power's out. I look outside and there's like 2 inches of snow. And I'm like, really? This is what puts Texas out? Coming from Indiana.
Dude, I know.
Ohio. Like I'm used to snow like above your door. Like you open the door and it's just a wall of snow, but you still have power.
Well, but that's the thing though, like Texas is like infrastructure it wasn't the fact that people can't handle snow. It's the fact that there's no snow plows, and like the actual like electrical grids can't handle, they're above ground. So they can't handle snow and cold weather. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. I don't.
Is that why you left? Did you leave because the snowpocalypse happened?
No, so I was coming here to build the insurance team.
Yeah,
I don't know when the last time we caught up was, but I went to Dallas before the ice storm.
I saw that. Yeah.
A, a guy from my old company hit me up and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna be in Dallas. You should come check it out." And like, not even the first day in, I'm like, I'm totally in on this stuff, whatever they're doing. So yeah, part of like a 75 man team now. I came here to San Diego for Jacob. Jacob's living here with his brother, and he's working for another company with a sales team, and they're all leaving and onboarding with me, and we're building this new system to basically start processing life insurance and stuff. But
Gotcha.
the story to get here, the ice storm happened. I got stuck in the second day. Well, the first day we went out and stole a wood grill and put it on the porch and we cooked a bunch of steak and potatoes and meat and stuff. And it was a fantastic, it's actually one of the best meals I've had in a while.
You had to work for it. That's the best one.
It tastes better when you're going to starve.
Exactly, dude.
So I woke up in the middle of the night, a pipe busted and was dripping on my head. Like, I don't want to stay here again for another night. So got the hostel, all the hotels were booked, ended up staying there and partying with the manager of the hostel and her friends. And it was kind of like a 5-day vacation in a snowstorm, and there was a bar open right next door. So it was just fun. And then packed up my car as soon as the ice storm was good, and then hit the road at like 6 o'clock at night on a Sunday, and ended up almost dying twice in Texas. So I was leaving the highways from Austin because there's no interstate from Austin to El Paso to the west. So I was going through the back country highways near like Travis, and every mile or so there was like a herd of deer. And then at one point I passed a 12-point buck standing on the other side of the road at like 90 miles an hour. And I'm like, I probably should slow down. So then I almost run out of gas halfway to El Paso, because all the gas stations are out of gas because of the ice storm, because nobody was running. So five stations later, I finally find gas. There wasn't a whole lot of stations out there. So I hit I-10 and another Texas infrastructure. If you've never drove in Texas, they're the worst roads in America and that I've ran across so far. Absolutely terrible. At mile marker like 168 on I-10, there's just a random dip and jump. And I'm doing 100 miles an hour and 370Z loaded up with all my stuff. My car unloads, not airborne, but unloads, lands, breaks loose sideways. I veer off the road at like 90, 80 miles an hour. Thank God there wasn't a ditch on the side of the road. It was like a hill ramp. I skirt it sideways, get it back on the road and stop, and I go around a barricade, and I get out of the car and I'm pulling grass out of the car. And I'm like, I damaged something. There's no way I did, but I couldn't see anything. And I used to, yeah, your keys are here. I got you. So
were you freaking out, or were you like, did you think you were about to die?
Yes. So I was like, hey, Clay. So,
yo, what up, Clay?
Hey, what up, Jacob?
How's it going, bro?
Good, man. How are you doing? I heard you're
I'm doing good, dog. I'm just
out there.
my keys. So yeah, sorry to disrupt.
Are you heading out?
I gotta drive Elliot.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I start pulling grass out, and my adrenaline is just going. But I used to drag race. Like I've been all around cars and motorcycles and everything in my entire life. I used to drag race a 9-second Camaro at like 150 miles an hour. I used to pop wheelies in a car. So
oh my God.
So cars don't scare me. Like racing doesn't scare me. This was the most intense adrenaline rush I've ever had in a car. Like I might get a tattoo because it was that life.
Did it alter your life? Did you have like any epiphanies after that?
I immediately pulled out my phone and text messaged 3 or 4 people that I was having some like conflict with, and I'm like, listen, no bullshit. I love you. I want you in my life forever. Like, you people are amazing.
Wow.
No matter like any of this petty bullshit in my life that's happening right now does not matter. We're cool. We're good. Like, I'm at peace.
Squash the beef.
Yeah. And I immediately texted my dad too. And I was like, thank you fucking God for teaching me how to drive, because I'd be dead right now.
Damn, dude,
Yeah.
that's fucking nuts.
If it was a ditch, I would have instead of a hill, I would have flipped and rolled at like 90 miles an hour. There's very little chance I would be alive.
That's insane. So your car went fully off the road,
So
like into the side.
I was going down, broke loose this way. I didn't overcorrect because I used to drive drift in like dirt and stuff. So I know how to handle a car when it's broke loose. But it was just out of control, broke loose, and I was off. It landed this way, snapped, and then this way, and I was sideways going off the road, and then brought it back onto the road.
So you didn't end up falling off the road then?
Yeah,
right?
I was completely off the interstate.
Okay.
Up on a hill sideways at like 80 miles an hour.
Dude, that is intense. I would have been, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. I thought you had a smooth sailing trip
No.
to San Diego.
So the second day, Tuesday, I'm halfway through New Mexico, and my fuel pump goes out, and I'm stuck in some
I've had that happen. I've had that happen before.
Well, it's even more stressful because I sold my property in Indiana, and I had a $26,000 check in my car, and it turns out there's no Chase banks in New Mexico. So I had to walk around New Mexico for a day and some change with 26 grand in my pocket. Just like can't deposit my money. The fuel pump ended up costing me $1,300, which was a total ripoff and a scam.
But that happens anytime you need it. They're gonna scam you.
Yeah, and I couldn't, like, it's okay. The first tow truck took 5 hours, so it's stay there another day and get like an extra $600 taken off or something, or just get it rolling so I can get to Arizona to deposit my check. So after that, it gets good. So the entire rest of the trip, I went to El Paso, met with a guy who was in one of my old teams, and we got some drinks. It was good. Then Tucson at night, met 5 people. One is a van lifer, and he's actually looking to join the team here. He's going to be driving down in a week or two and checking out, watching us making money and stuff. And then went to Phoenix, met some friends that they're also salespeople. They might be joining in on the team. And then Vegas for 2 nights, stayed with a friend and met a chick there, and then went to Palm Springs and had my birthday in Palm Springs. The 28th was my birthday.
Nice. Happy birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Thanks.
February. You're a leap year baby, right?
Yeah. I ended up having a party all night with people I didn't know. I didn't know anybody. They were just people from my YouTube. I was like, hey, rolling through. They're like, hey, stop by. All right.
That YouTube clout got you some. Were they fans? Is it weird to hang out with fans?
So I hope she doesn't see this. It was a bit of a shit show. So, well, no, it was a fantastic party. It was really fun. Everybody was amazing. But the girl who was hosting it, who followed me on YouTube and Instagram, was plastered, just like,
oh no,
laying over the bed, throwing up, like a complete shit show. And I'm sitting there like 3 a.m. Like, I'm trying to find a hotel. The only one I can find is like $400 Hilton or something. And I'm just like, well, what do I do? So do I drive another 2 hours to San Diego or crash on the couch? Or luckily she had a spare bedroom with an air mattress. So I just crashed there. And nice. I was like, I need to wake up and dip before she wakes up because this is just like awkward.
Yeah.
But we didn't. We ended up just talking afterwards, and then she actually took me around with 2 of her friends all day, and we just went to some restaurants and enjoyed the day and everything.
Nice.
Chill. Nice. So yeah, it turned into something really good, and then I dipped to San Diego, and now we're here. So that's been the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this is not uncommon for you at all. It's like, this is how you got to Austin. You freaking like. Dude, I feel like every time I see you, I'm like, where even is he? Like, you're either in a different spot or you're just, it's crazy. But
what's the next story? That's honestly why I do half the stuff I do. I'm just like, well,
it's a good story.
It's going to be an interesting story.
Yeah, and you're a great storyteller, so that's the benefit, right? Like, you got to be a good storyteller to be a YouTuber. So that's your like, you can't you got to have these stories backlogged so you can use them for YouTube. You know, it's part of your job. Like, just use it as.
Yeah.
But okay, so you're doing insurance now, and then are you like, in terms of like the finance side stuff, are you trying to get into real estate, or what all are you doing? I know you wanted to do van life, right? So you sold your property and you're debating doing van life, like for a year, a couple years.
So yeah, there's just so many things flying right now that I'm gonna have a better idea of what I'm gonna be doing in the next month or so as we get the system running with the agency and making money. I'll have an idea of what we're gonna be producing. But there's a few routes that we can go. Man, I've got a lot of stuff that's been happening these past 2 weeks that I need to tell you about.
That's crazy.
So the podcast I just got off with an hour ago, the private equity real estate syndicate guy that does private investments.
Oh, okay.
A chick that I met when I was in Tulum a couple months ago, who works for a major corporation in Canada, she's a top stock lady, or it's the first date I went on where I talked technical analysis with a chick.
That's so hot, dude.
What's your indicators? So
if she has paper hand, she's not for you.
Yeah. So she sent me a email with the report on graphite, and essentially she's like, you need to check this out. We did an analysis on the graphite industry, and it's looking like it might be an interesting thing. And they sent me some tickers, but long story short, I forwarded that to this guy I just did a podcast with, and he's like, I'm going to analyze all these companies. I'll build a report for you, and we're going to do a podcast over it. So I also met a guy last night who was part of my team and has been following me for a long time. He lives here in San Diego, and he does what you guys do. He does business credit and stuff like that. And he's like, bro, I can give you $1 million, 0% in a year. I don't want $1 million, 0% for a year, because that's way too much leverage. But the idea is, I'll probably use his strategy and get some business credit, and then figure out how to invest it either in the stock market or invest it with this real estate private equity syndicate guy. He says he can do a stable, secure 15% ROI a year, and that's one thing that's going on. So the other thing,
we do that too, like the real estate investment funds. Tyler, my friend, pays out, I think it's between 18 and 24%, which is like really high. And it's the same thing. Yeah, you can leverage like 0% interest credit and then pull it out, put it into real estate, and I think Tyler returns it in like 6 months or something.
Wow.
You should talk to them for sure.
Okay.
But I mean, either way, that's the same strategy essentially.
Okay. So the one, this is a side thing, but with everything going on in the world with the inflation, all the financial indicators I'm looking at, and all the people I'm talking to, and the credit stuff that's going on, I cannot see how this is not a bubble. Like I know. If you look at the stock market, like it's like this right now.
Dude, me and you have been saying this for months. Like, remember, we were like, right now we're in like a stock market correction. I was like, yeah, we're in a correction, but this, dude, it's gonna crash.
The S&P 500 PE ratio is like 38 right now.
And like, how is this possible when COVID stopped the business activity for months on end?
Well, it's the printing. It's all the printing of the money and stuff. That's what
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what people don't understand is like, okay, how do you think the economy? Do you think the economy and like the stock market's just doing better after COVID? It's like, no, they printed more money to allow it to just. They basically just inflated it for a short period of time, and then. But that's what they've been doing this for years and years and years. So it's not just the fact that COVID happened. It's the fact that COVID happened, and then also the past 40 years of them printing money. Like,
have you seen the Fed balance sheet? Do you look at that? Do you know what give me screen sharing. I'll show you how much inflation is. So this is
be able to. Yeah.
Okay, let me see Fed assets. So that's one thing I'm working on, and then the van life and the other stuff. So Host
Van life's
this.
more of a lifestyle, I feel like, that's like,
Yeah, well, it does fit my lifestyle though. Go ahead and go to your
sure.
security. Go to your security and
Oh,
do the
you need me to update
Yeah.
the setting for you? Gotcha.
So I basically started running the numbers, and I was spending like $1,500, well, $2,000 after everything in Austin a month just to live there. And I'm like, after doing house hacking in Indiana and not having to pay rent ever,
Yeah.
I just hate paying rent. I hate it. So I started thinking, like, how can I reduce my expenses and live the lifestyle I want? How can I travel and do all the things that I'm doing now, but cheaper,
Right.
on top of stacking all my income and my cash and investing it? Because I just want to reduce my income as much as possible and stack investments. So after running the numbers, I figured I could do van life. I could spend 50 grand on a van, and it'd cost me like $100 to $200 a month for 3 to 5 years. Like total.
Dang. That's insane.
Yeah, I'll run you through the numbers in a second, but let me.
Okay. It should allow you. Oh, wait, there we go. Now you're good. You're good.
Okay. So this is the Fed asset balances sheet. So this quantitative easing, all that fancy jazz, this is inflation. This is what inflation is. So the Federal Reserve prints out money, loans it to the government, and then the government gives it to the banks. They buy up assets. So this is the Fed asset balance sheet, which is them giving money to the rest of the world.
Yeah,
So,
they give it to the companies so the companies can cover the losses on their books. So everything looks fine in the stock market because they're getting money and like basically input into their companies. And then in reality, everyone's eating the loss collectively, like as a society.
Yep. You can, the back end of the money system is disgusting. Crypto. These are the roots of finance. These are the major levers that move everything. So 2008 housing market crash, we had like 2.5 million. Then started printing more money, and then we kind of leveled off, and then we started dipping slowly. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and we went from at the high point 4.4, and we are now at 7.5, almost double what we were already, on top of everything else that's going on in the world. So you can look at the PE or the PE ratio. This is the average PE ratio of the U.S. stock market over the past 100 years. 25 is expensive and overpriced. Under 15 is good. Under 10 is really cheap. We're at 39.
What is that blip? Look at the 2010 one.
So that's the housing market crash. So we're looking at the price of a stock over earnings of the stock, and the financial devastation that happened just made the PE ratio skyrocket. Same for the dot-com boom in the 90s, and then you can go back. But yeah, definitely a lot of financial catastrophes in the works.
But this is great. This is great news if you know anything about finance, because number one, obviously, if everything does crash and you have money on the sidelines, well, one, you could buy stuff. But for me, you could just invest in cryptocurrency because
too bad you can't capitalize on all this volatility that's going to happen soon, because all your money's in XRP, which is in a zip drive.
And it's going to the moon. So
I hope it does. The more I get in, I'm actually really enjoying studying crypto and stuff. I had a guy send me a money flow indicator or calculation on crypto and stuff, but
really,
I'm starting to get into crypto a lot more. And I was screwing around with a couple $100 in just a trading platform, and I did probably 30 or 40 trades over the course of 3 weeks and had 100% return.
Dude, I mean, well, the crypto space is nutty. So the volatility there, if you're looking for volatility, get in that.
Well, it's the patterns. If you're a technical pattern trader, if you're just running off of like risk to reward, it's really easy. Like it's way easier, way less complicated than equities. I'm enjoying it.
Interesting. Well, yeah, that's a whole nother, I mean, So like even with like XRP, for example, like the lawsuit that's going on with the SEC right now, like there could be a scenario where XRP gets deemed a security, and then like you can only get it if you're an accredited investor, or you could only get it if it's, like there's a bunch of weird scenarios that could happen. I hope it still is deemed a currency, because that's best for its use case long term. But there are some scenarios out there to where weird happen, and like the weird thing about like cryptocurrencies is specifically right now is like a lot of them, like obviously they're not securities, or they're not currently deemed as securities, so they're just tradable for everyone. Like, and you don't have to use any type of custodial services like you would with like a Charles Schwab or something like that. So I don't know. I'm interested to see where it goes in the long term, but that's what I'm a long-term investor. Like I have so many friends and stuff, and so many people that are like, oh dude, like this and this is happening. And like, I'm betting on the utility and the use case and the direction of the technology over a long period of time. Like, I don't care if it goes up and down over a short period. It's like, if you just look at, like, me and you have looked at the stock market, like the stock market's a great example, but just the Fed printing that amount of money, everyone knows, like, if you know anything about it, you're like, oh, this is clearly not good. Like, this can't go on forever. And so what happens when it can't go on forever? Either everyone eats crazy losses, and what are we going to do with the trillions and trillions of dollars in debt? It ends up coming down to the point where it's like, well, one really good solution would be to switch over to a cryptocurrency-based system where this can't happen, and we have hard money instead of soft money. Like hard money in the sense that, like, we're not creating more of it; it's actually getting scarcer and scarcer.
So I'm the same way. I'm leaning more towards fundamental long term when it comes to equities and just the overall stock market and businesses. But I am traditional long on Bitcoin, but the crypto is an interesting pattern, technical analysis, an interesting pattern, because it moves. The first spike back a couple of years ago, where it ran up to 20,000 and then dropped to 4,000. That's a classic pump and dump pattern from stocks. Like, it's a hype thing, but it's not. The fundamentals of Bitcoin long term are actually long term. It's a hype crash, which you don't see that in equities. It's a new pattern, and I didn't understand it. I always just like, it's going to pop and fade. It's always going to pop and fade. But now it's like running to 60,000.
Pop, fade.
There's a reason though. There's a reason. So
it gets harder over time, and it's actually like think about like the dollar, like the U.S. dollar. They can print more of it, making all of your dollars worth less money. It just, on a very simple basis, there's only 21 million Bitcoin ever, and just based on the halving, which is like when every 4 years, it's harder to mine. It's twice as hard to mine Bitcoin every 4 years, which means the supply of Bitcoin gets less and less and less and less every single 4 years. And there can never be any more than 21 million. So it's like, it's actually that's why you see the charts like that. It pretty much is guaranteed.
Well, there's also data loss too. There's also data loss, like Bitcoin.
People losing Bitcoins.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, think about how many are lost, dude. Probably more than are not lost.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you something. So a guy started talking to me on Instagram about the fundamental analysis of Bitcoin, and it's about flow, and it's about the halving. Like, it gets harder every 4 years to do this stuff, but essentially it's a stock to flow model. So if you want to research, are you familiar with stock to flow?
No, not really. I mean, possibly. I'll have to hear what you say first. It's term, though.
It's essentially what you're saying. So we'll use regular gold and silver as this. There's only a certain amount of gold and silver in the Earth's crust, and we only mine so many at a certain point. And there's a reserve. So let's say we have 100 gold, but we only mine 2 gold a year. But eventually that's going to be 120. Versus 2, so the rate of production doesn't increase at the same rate of reserve that's being held. So that's where the halving comes in. So as you get into the stock flow, that's how the halving works, and then you can graph this out on Bitcoin, and if we can kind of it's kind of hard for me to see, but you can use this to see where the underpriced and overpriced is relative to the market based on where we're at. So you can see the chart kind of runs up and then flatlines, runs up and then flatlines. This line here, I think that is the production of Bitcoins, or like something like that. I would have to reread it. I'm not an expert in this stuff, but I found it really interesting looking at that. And then if you apply that to technical analysis and looking at the technical chart, just from a technical perspective, I would like it to come down to 20,000 again. I would like it to retouch 20,000. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think a good area around 30,000 would be decent. And then anything below that's like a really good buy.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like I have no expertise on technical analysis at all. So I'm always just like, my whole thing is like people don't get it. It's like, if you know what you're investing in and you put money in, let's say I put money in at 40,000 for Bitcoin. Why would you panic and then sell it when it drops down to like 35,000 or 30,000? If your window and your run time is like 40 years, you would just leave it, and because over the long term, it's going to go up in value. So I have friends that are like, well, should I buy it now, or when's the perfect time to buy? I'm like, instead of trying to time the market, why don't you just get in and forget about it? But a lot of the thing is people are trying to make quick money. And when you're trying to make quick money and you don't know exactly what you're buying, emotions will get the best of you.
Absolutely. You can't say that you're going to do long-term investing with Bitcoin and then panic when it drops. That's
exactly.
A lot of people don't think in those long time frames though, but I can show you like an easy technical analysis. So this is the first pop and fade of 2008 where it ran to 20,000. This is a classic pattern of penny stocks and low floats and companies that are trash, really. And that's why I was so anti-Bitcoin for a while, until I started to understand the fundamentals more. But it's one of the best patterns to play for making money long, because it pops up and then it comes back down. And as it curves, this is called a cup and handle. As it curves, your risk to reward gets lower and lower. You're starting to build support. So if you buy in at, say, 6,000 here on Bitcoin, and let's say you're risking to, I don't know, 4,000, a $2,000 risk. Yeah. Your upside though, from 4,000 to 20,000 is 16,000. Divide that by 2,000. That's 8 to 1 risk to reward. So this pattern it's one of my favorite patterns when it comes to technical analysis. And then it actually broke down to 4,000, which is even better, because as it drops, it's getting cheaper. It's getting the R&R is going from 8 to 1 to 10 to 1 to 12 to 1. So it's my favorite pattern to look at. And I actually wanted to get into a bunch of Bitcoin when it was at 4, but I missed it. And just my technical background, I don't chase trades. And now I'm kicking myself because I probably should have chased this one, actually. I didn't understand the fundamentals at this point when it was at 4. But then it just kind of flatlines. And anytime it dips, like down back to 4 would have been a good buy. And then now we're repeating the same pattern.
The 2017 pattern. Again, it's like it comes in these cycles like this. And I mean, dude, it's interesting.
I don't know what's going on with I don't know why my chart's messed up, but man, the more I study Bitcoin, the more I'm looking at it as a long-term thing versus a short-term thing, but it's still the same pattern. So you're getting this massive rate of acceleration, which just isn't sustainable. It's not sustainable that this thing is going to stay like that forever. So when it rips back down, I'm just waiting for it to cup and handle again. And when it starts to do that curve, that's when I'm going to get into it. So I use technical analysis as just where to buy. That's all it is. If you understand the fundamentals behind a company or Bitcoin, then you just use the technical analysis to figure out okay, this is a pretty decent buy. But if you're long like you are, no matter what, then you just get better prices. That's all it is.
Exactly. You're getting, This is what the thing, like a lot of people, like they'll put too much weight on that. Like I have friends that'll be like, they won't get into something because they're like, oh, well, I want to wait till it comes down a couple cents or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's like if I'm talking about specifically like altcoins, but like if you're waiting for something, you're trying to buy something at 25 cents and you really want to get it at 20, the risk of it going like crazy and going on a tear is higher than the value of you making a couple extra dollars or a couple extra dollars on it dipping down a little bit. I'm like, just put your money in and keep it there long term. But people,
Yeah.
I mean, people love to speculate, and it is fun. It's like gambling. It's like, it's fun to do. So if that's the play and you're doing it for fun, then it's totally different than if you're like,
Yeah, I usually size in portions. So I'll do like an eighth here, an eighth there, an eighth there.
Yeah.
Like as it comes down, I'll be stacking into something. So that way you're not like just all in, all out.
Yeah.
And then you're sweating. But yeah.
Shit. Well, okay. So I want to move into a specific area here. So I'm intrigued by specifically your relationship life. Like you have one of the craziest like storylines I've ever heard. Should we go into that? Are you open to talking about that?
I'm totally comfortable talking about I just don't know what your podcast is typically about.
My podcast is it's all over the place. We talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about.
So we're talking about women. Okay.
No. So I want to go, dude, because when we first met, I was just like, dude, he has some of the craziest, like you have the craziest storyline of relationships. Like if you just give everybody the rundown of your like, okay, starting from like probably age 20 up to where you are now of just like, okay, here were my relationships and here's all the different things I experienced. I specifically want you to go into, the stories, but
are we doing opportunity? Are we talking about my romantic relationships, or are we talking about like opportunity cost and just meeting people?
Ooh, that's a good question. Start with romantic, and then we'll talk about the other ones.
All right. Well, one of the things I teach in life coaching and when I'm teaching guys is there's 3 things that are going to take the most of your time. If you visualize a ball of gold in front of you, like a solid sphere of gold, that's like your total life wealth that you'll generate before the day you die.
I'm picturing XRP, but continue.
Okay. As you get older, you're losing time, and through compounding interest, that ball is going to continue to shrink and shrink and shrink. So the older you are, your time is worth less. Now that can be offset by learning skills and improving yourself and making more money, but theoretically, that ball shrinks continuously and it's constantly shrinking. This kind of gets people to be afraid, but the 3 things that are really gonna shrink that gold sphere down is taxes, women, and rent. Like
taxes. That is so true.
For a lot of men, it's women, taxes, then rent.
Yeah, that's it.
So the past 10 years, I'm 30. I just turned 31. I'm looking back at my 20s, and I'm just like, why did I spend so much time on women and relationships? And God, there's just so much time wasted, so much money wasted.
Yeah.
Well,
share your lessons on that though, because there's a lot of people that listen that are in their 20s or even younger that are probably going to be going through that coming up here.
Well, my number one thing would be realize that the day you die, there's only going to be like a handful of people that really matter and that are in your life. And the majority of people that you're going to meet throughout your life, especially in your 20s, probably won't be there. And they probably, if they're there by the time you're 40 or 50, you're lucky. If they're there by the time you die, you're really lucky. So what I've learned is focus more on just being out in the world and meeting as many people as possible. And you will find people that you have good connections with and that like are good. Like me and you, we've been in contact since we met, since I moved to Austin. You hit me up. Like I see me and you being cool for a really long time.
For
our lives.
Yeah.
And it's those relationships that are really hard to find. And it's even harder when you're talking romantic.
Yeah.
whether you're 25 years or 20 years old, if you've had girlfriends, if you've not, realize that they're probably not going to be around, and you're the only person that's going to be in your life, and you're the only person that's going to make your life better. Like your life's ROI is on you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people they spend so much time trying to make someone else happy, and they don't even know how to be happy like with themselves.
Yep. I did that a lot in my relationships. So my first big relationship, I was engaged when I was 20 I got into the relationship at 20, right as I turned 21. 24, I broke it off. She was a preacher's daughter. She was real like just reserved, and
you guys were fully like, you were engaged to get married, right?
Yeah. We were 6 months away. I actually,
wow.
I text my friend and told him, hey, you need to go to here to get your tux and your cufflinks. And then the next day I called him. I was like, hey, forget about that. We broke up.
Oh my gosh, dude! Do you ever think like this would be your ninth anniversary?
Yeah. So looking back, I was supposed to inherit my family's manufacturing facility. It was a multi-million-dollar facility that my grandfather built out of his chicken coop. And I was raised old school. Like I was raised to my grandparents were married for 80 years. They built businesses from scratch. Yep. My grandma was born 7 pounds premature did I ever tell you that story? The 7 pounds
So I heard that.
My grandma was born 7 pounds premature in the Ozark Mountains of Missouri in the 1930s. In the middle of winter, the Indian housewife wanted to throw her out back because she didn't think that she would survive the winter and didn't want my grandma to get postpartum depression. In a log cabin, actually not even a log cabin, it was like a shanty shack, like a Hooverville shack. She didn't have shoes till she was 7, didn't have running water, electricity, or see a car till she was 13. Like poor.
Wow.
Like there's nobody in America that is as poor as my grandma was when she was a child. Like that level of poverty doesn't exist in America anymore. But that was how my grandpa was too. And then they built this whole, business and facility that I was supposed to inherit. And then 12 years after working there, I turned in my 2 weeks and told my dad, peace, I'm starting a YouTube channel. So
you're engaged. And then when did you break off the engagement to when you started YouTube?
Yeah. So, I started YouTube 2008 when I was 18. I was still working. This is before my engagement. The big thing with young people, and if you're under 20, I mean, really anybody, is you got to figure out who you are in life, and figuring that out and figuring out what you enjoy in life is going to give you so much more in life than trying to be something. So when I was younger, when I was 18, my grandfather passed away, and hundreds of people showed up to his funeral. I told you that story, right?
Yeah. That's a really cool story.
Yeah.
So share that real quick too, because that's epic.
So my grandpa was 82 years old, passed away, and hundreds of people showed up to his funeral. And you don't have a lot of friends at 82 years old. I stood there at calling hours for like 5 hours, shaking people's hands, and these people telling me all kinds of stories, thanking me for my grandfather. And if you knew who I was when I was 18, actually I have a photo I can show you. This is
oh, hell yeah.
You can see a contrast of where I started versus where I'm at now. So that was me at 18 years old. Those are water tattoos.
Water tatted.
Yeah, I went over to a friend's house and they're like, "You want a tattoo?" And I was like, "Give them to me all." So they just slapped all the sheets on me. But yeah, 18 years old, he passed away, and that's when I started making YouTube videos because all these people were thanking me for my grandfather and what he had done, and it was weird. Like I've never been to a funeral like that, and it was probably the most impactful moment of my life, honestly. It's why I do everything I do now in YouTube. But in the funeral, they were playing a slideshow of pictures and videos, and there's a picture of the shack the chicken coop that the business started at. And for the first time, I was able to see like crystal clear, like where somebody started in life and where they ended. And I'm like, holy shit, like you can really do a lot in your life if you want to. So
Did that like kickstart your growth mindset of like, oh my God, I
No,
need to like,
no, no, no.
no.
No, that didn't start. That didn't start for another 7 years, 25 years. So,
So you just were like, you still were just
yeah,
like, ah.
yeah, I'm a slow learner. Stuff doesn't
That's
stick real
hilarious.
quick
So
for me. But
what kickstarted you to like be like, you started YouTube
the
at 18,
engagement,
but
the
the
engagement.
engagement did it. Okay.
So I was in a lifestyle that I just fell into. I barely graduated high school, didn't go to college, uh, just worked for the family business, and I enjoyed what I did. I enjoyed pouring molten metal and running machines. One of my favorite jobs is to sit and pour molten metal all day. Like it's a very relaxing thing to do for some reason for me. But I just hate monotony. I hate doing the same thing over and over and over. I'm very extroverted. I like being out and talking to people and experiencing life and traveling and all this stuff. But you don't know any of that stuff when you're young. And I had a pretty terrible teenage life. And the less you know about yourself, the harder it is to live a good life. So I got engaged to a girl, and she was a preacher's daughter, very conservative, very like, let's get married, white picket fence, all that stuff. And I'm not that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I cannot see that at all.
No, no, but I was miserable. I was depressed and just I was stressed out for my job. I was at that, by the time the relationship ended, I was in charge of the machine shop, the CNC machines, and programming like 8 machines and keeping them all running. I had like 3 or 4 people under me. And I was just getting paid like $18 an hour, super stressed out, working 60, 70 hours a week on top of this relationship I was in that I wasn't happy in. And I was just fucking miserable. I hated my life. Like I was waking up like, I don't want to wake up. I don't want to do anything. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I always messed around with videos throughout the years. I was doing a lot of video games and stuff like that. I knew video editing was something that was a skill that would be useful for the rest of my life. So I did have a growth mindset a little bit, but it wasn't as fleshed out as it is now. I would do things that were like, okay, this is something that, you know, I could see myself doing for a long time or be useful for a long time. So always add things to your skill set. Look at yourself as if you're a handyman or a tool, like your tools. Like you have to add tools to your workshop to get things done, and they need to be complementary tools. Like you don't want to learn electricity and get all the electricity tools and then go do carpentry. Like that's
something. You're trying to get the same like things that'll help you in that same direction.
Yeah. So I knew YouTube was. I knew social media and networking was a big thing. I didn't understand it to the degree I do now, but I knew that I want to do YouTube to get out into the world and meet people. Even at a young age, I just, didn't know what the hell I was doing. If you watch some of my first videos, they're terrible. But
start somewhere.
In 2011, the 3D printing boom popped off. So I started. I made 2 or 3 videos on how a 3D printer works, and they're absolute trash. It's me walking around with a GoPro talking. I can't even watch them. It's uncomfortable for me to watch my old videos. But they got a couple 100,000 views, and I was making like $200, $300 a month off of it. And fast forward to 2015, 2017, I'm miserable with my life and trying to figure out what the hell to do next. On top of deciding to leave my family's 80-year-old business and tell my dad that I'm not taking it over. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do YouTube seriously, and I'm going to make money. And I was watching Lost LeBlanc. He's a Pacific Island traveler. He does Thailand and all those things.
Yeah.
And I was like, this motherfucker is sitting here on a beach making YouTube videos, living life. And I'm sitting here like pouring molten metal covered in black dirt and just sweating in 100-degree heat at 100% humidity. Like, this is not life. This is not the life I want. Yes, it's complete bullshit. If he can do it, I can do it. So I decided to do it seriously and spent 2 years studying, which was a waste of time, actually. This is another thing I learned in my 20s is stop planning, stop strategizing, stop overthinking. Like thinking is a toxic thing.
Dude, that's the most true thing I've ever heard. I was paralyzed with my thoughts and planning.
Oh my God.
And
it's so deceiving too.
It's so counterintuitive. You think you're making progress and you're not.
Yeah. Like I'm trying to imagine your viewers watching me right now. They probably think I'm just this like dude I'm not. Like I was a very extroverted or a very introverted person. Like there would be days at my old career where I wouldn't talk to anybody. Like I would have multiple days sometimes where I would not say a single word to anyone. I would go home and not speak to anybody. I would play video games and not speak to anybody. Like I spend a tremendous amount of time in my head, and it's a waste. It's a complete waste of time because you cannot predict the future. It's an ego thing. It's entirely an ego thing. You think you're smart enough to predict the future. And I'm not saying don't be smart and don't study and don't educate and don't strategize or plan to a degree. That's very important. I have a strategy and I have a plan of what I'm doing in the next year.
Yeah, a general, the vision or the direction.
It needs to be like 20 minutes. Like you sit down and like, well, it's hard to teach people this because there has to be a balance. You have to maybe split days. So like do your planning for like an hour or two in the morning, and then the rest of the day is just action. And you're really good at action. So when we met, I actually started like kind of watching you on how you do action and stuff. And I'm like, fuck, I need to step up my game and stop thinking.
No, it's because I had the same problem, dude. And I literally would get to the point where I'm like, I have so many things I want to do in life and so many ideas and so much ambition bottled up. And then it gets to the point where, like you said, it's like, okay, nothing actually matters until you take action. And then all your plans are out the window anyway. All the shit that you thought was going to happen doesn't happen the way you thought it was going to happen. Like, so none of it matters until you start doing it. Like you said, there is a ton of benefit to having the clarity and like so you don't waste time doing the wrong actions. You know where you're going. But at the same time, like, I would rather go 100 miles in the wrong direction than to stay in one place. I really would. Absolutely. I really would do that because you'll learn from those 100 miles.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly it. Like, that's a perfect analogy. Like, okay, so how I got to Austin, how I'm here right now. I've told you the story of me hitching a ride in the semi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had
action. That's like real action. Like, get the hell up and go action.
Yeah, so I came back from Thailand, a month in Thailand, 2 years ago, 2019. Yeah, and I was exhausted. Like, I was definitely sick. I went hard in Thailand. I tend to go hard, but I got back and a friend hit me up from hometown, and he said I already knew he was working for a race team or he was doing racing stuff, but in Indiana is all racing. Like, you can literally be like, it could be like out of a trailer park. You could be a race team.
Yeah.
So he calls me up and I see him call. I remember looking at the phone and not wanting to, when somebody calls and you don't want to answer the phone.
You're like,
I remember that. And I was like, no, I have a thing where I'm like, I'll listen to somebody. I always try to take an opportunity. I knew he was calling me for some reason because he doesn't usually call me. Right. So I answered it, and he's like, hey, we're taking the race team down to Austin, Texas, to the Formula One track. You want to hitch a ride? And I was like, honestly, I was like tired, but part of me was also like, fuck yeah, let's go. But I've never wanted to go to Texas. Like, if you're not in Texas, it's like, why would I want to go to Texas? But he's like, no, man, Austin's like totally different. It's an awesome place. So I jumped in a semi, hitched a ride down there, spent the weekend doing the race stuff. And then I met a chick on Bumble and ended up staying with her a few days. And then the race team dipped out Monday. And I was like, I'll find my way home. Stayed with the girl for like 2 or 3 more days, and then booked a flight to Phoenix, and then I was going to go to Montreal, Mexico. But I went to the airport and couldn't get my ticket, and I'm like, hey, your thing's broken. They're like, no, you booked 2 weeks from now. Fuck. So I had to take
my God, 2 weeks?
Yes, and I didn't pay the $10 extra for the insurance, so I couldn't rebook it. So I rolled. I had to go back to this chick's place, and she worked at the apartment complex that she was staying, that she lived at. I had to roll into the front office, and I'm like, I need help. I'm not homeless. I just screwed up. So I ended up staying with her for like another week, and we went out and just had a blast the entire time. It was one of the most fun weekends fun weeks I've ever had in my life, honestly. But I ended up buying my 370Z there. So I was like, I screwed up my flight. So I just bought a car and then road trip to New Orleans and went to Miami, and then got back home and got to Indiana. I was like, fuck this place.
Like, what am I doing in Indiana?
Yeah. So I moved. So the whole story, the opportunity cost, and you don't know where you're going to go in life. I would rather go 100 miles the wrong way than to sit and think about it, because I hitched that ride. I took the flight. I ended up moving to Austin. That relationship blew up and was terrible, and it spiraled me into a severe depression. It was real rough for me. Like, when we met, I was not in a good place mentally. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know.
No, it was not well. It was not good at all, because I moved there in the middle of COVID, and I didn't know anybody. And just solitary confinement, just psychologically, if you put yourself in isolation, it's bad. It's real bad for you. But that, even though it was like pretty much the most painful year of my life, there's been so much growth from that. And it all started with a phone call. And now I've met you, I've met Jacob, I'm in this company, I'm doing all these things. I've met Jesse, who's the podcast does this on, who does real estate syndicate, private equity.
All that from just those little actions, man, snowballs.
If you spend, like, for every beer you have, spend a year just doing things, just saying yes, and you will learn what I'm saying. Like, you can't learn it. Like, you can watch this podcast and you can hear us say it, but once you experience it, that's where you learn it.
So Jesse Itzler, one of like the guys I really look up to, he always says like your 20s and your 30s are for saying yes to things, and then like your 40s and he was like, and then your 40s are for doing whatever, and then like your 50s and stuff is for saying no to things. So like, when you're younger, you're supposed to say yes to a lot of stuff. You're supposed to go. You have the time, you have the bandwidth to go experience a ton of stuff. You don't have to start protecting that. Like, once you have a family and once you're in that mode where like you need to protect your time, you don't have as much time left, then you start saying no to things that don't make sense because you've tried a lot of stuff. But to get to that point, like dude, I literally have to write down on a piece of paper, like, here's the things I want to get done. I mean, I have this a year at a glance calendar there for a reason. It's because if I don't put on that calendar, like, I'm going to India this summer, like, it's on the calendar, it's there, I booked all the stuff, and I have it planned out. If I don't have that stuff, it's never going to happen. Yeah. And like, absolutely. taking action. Like, I had a Muay Thai fight this past weekend. Dude, I was so nervous about that. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be nuts. It was like in the fucking back. Like, it was like some sketchy, it was like a legit fight, like a brawl in the bottom of this gym, basically. I showed up to fight this guy, and the reason I did is it's on my calendar. I said, I'm going to do a Muay Thai fight on this day. I had one that was signed up, and I was like, once I have that there, I don't back out of something. I'm going to do it. Like 100 miles on my calendar, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure out a way. And so it's the same thing. I'll literally write stuff down on my notebook where I'm like, okay, I need to get this amount of stuff done. And when I feel the friction every day, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't know how to do this. What comes down to, for me, is like, you have to make tons of like radical small decisions. It's like, if I don't know how to build this training for my sales team, I have to open up my computer. That's the first decision. Then I have to open up the page and I have to write out, here's the sections I need to train them on. Then I have to write the bullet points of what I want to speak about. Then I have to record the video. It's like tons of these tiny, tiny, tiny decisions that people look at the big picture and they get overwhelmed. They're like, I don't know how to build a house, so I'm not even going to get started. But in reality, it's like, just clear off the land first. Just clear all the sticks out of the way. And then, it's like all these tiny little actions. But to your point, like, get out and go do stuff. The more you get out, like the fact that you like just randomly said yes to that, and then you start talking to this person and this person, everything, there's like so much power in that momentum that like all of a sudden taking action becomes easier once you've taken a lot of action. But when you stop for a while, you're like, it's a lot of friction to get back into it. It's weird.
Well, it's not only, I think so the friction for me has gotten almost non-existent. It was really difficult, but now I'm to the point where one of the great things about saying yes and getting out in the world and doing things is you start to learn more of who you are and who you want to be and what you want to do. And I'm now to the point after going to Dallas and joining this new team and company and what I'm doing now here in San Diego, like I'm in like a constant flow state. Like everything is easy. There's no resistance for what I'm doing. Like I wake up, as I was traveling here, I was waking up at like 3 times in the morning, not from nightmares or like stress or anything like that. I'm waking up because I'm ready to go. Like I want to wake up. And it's such a crazy contrast to be in that mental state versus depressed, miserable state of my life like 7 or 8 years ago. And as you continue to do more and more things and take more action, you're learning intuitively that like your life's getting better. Like as long as you're not focusing on the small stuff and the unimportant stuff, you have to have a clear vision of who you want to be and where you're going. But when you line those things out and you understand why you're doing what you're doing, it makes everything so much easier.
Yeah. And to that point, like you have to know who you want to be and stuff. Like everyone thinks that like you have to have it all figured out and shit. Like at the end of the day, when people say like you have to know where you want to be and where you're going to go, the best you can do is just write down on a piece of paper, like, hey, this is where I want to be and this is where I want to go. Just write it down. And guess what? You can change your answer over time. If it's not where you wanted to go, well, you just change your answer. And it's like, whatever. Like, don't spend your whole life thinking like, I need to know my life's purpose and fucking mission and all that. You should do that stuff. Like you should take the time and take an hour, take a day, take a week to write that down. But once you do it, focus on what you got to do day to day. It's like too many people stress about, I don't know who I want to be or where I want to go, but it's like, it's part of the process. You're never going to be the person you want to be. You'll never get to that point. It's a never ending game.
Well, that's not a reason not to line that out. So this is what I do in my life, my life coaching. And this goes back to my grandfather. So my grandfather passed away. He had all those hundreds of people at his funeral. And for my entire, to the day I die, I'm going to ask like, why? Like I've always analyzed that funeral and my other grandfather's funeral, who only had like 8 people show up. And I was like, how do I live that life? And it came down to, he was extremely generous and helped people, and he provided opportunities. So the business that he built and sustained the family, it helped a lot of people, and that's what he was thanked for. That's what he was respected for. So now I'm using my YouTube as a way to network and platform and give opportunities to people that follow me to make money, and that's why I'm here in Austin and San Diego. So when I'm life coaching somebody, I tell them that story, and then I'm like, okay, who in your life do you admire? Like, who was it who had a massive, it can't be like a celebrity. It can't be like Beyonce or The Rock or something. It has to be somebody you know. It has to be an emotional connection that you have and stories and like in experiences that you had with them. But then ask yourself, what was it? What traits in them did you admire? Like what character traits? Who were they? And then you either realize that you are like that, because a lot of times you are like your parents or your grandparents, or you're not like that and you want to become that. So then that gives you a direction. Okay, I need to be more generous. I need to be more kind. I need to be more extroverted. I need to talk to more people. I need to figure out how to provide opportunities to people. So the reason that I'm in a flow state now with what I'm doing, and I'm like, there's no resistance, is because I'm in line with what my vision is of the future. And
dude, and that, don't you just feel amazing when that's the case? You're like, I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Dude, I'm just waking up like, let's go, let's talk to people, let's do shit.
That's so, because I know me and you talked a couple months ago, and like, the COVID area, like, and that time frame, there's a lot of rough stuff that happened for people. Even like that time frame for me, like that beginning period was super hard, but again, it blossoms the best times. Like I don't know how to explain it, but that you have to get that momentum of taking that action and like getting back into like, it's almost like this. It's almost like the more you're willing to experience life, the more stuff it's going to give you. And the more you cut yourself off from life, the more you're dying on the inside.
Absolutely. If you lock yourself in a room for the rest of
You're
your
going to
life,
die.
you're going to die, and you're not going to have any opportunities or friends or anything. Like,
yeah.
the only way to live life is in life and taking action. Like,
yeah,
everything else isn't that important.
I know. Oh man. But so many people are don't know how to just go out and experience life. Do you have any like tangible tips? Like, hey, here's how to go out and actually like have a life full of stories. Cause that's what you have. You have like a lot of stories and a lot of stuff day to day. What are your tips to go out and actually do that?
So that's kind of what I coach. Let me pause. So I did a live stream real quick just to do a little bit, but it's only a portion of it. For anybody that's watching this, if you want to see the full live stream, check out Clay Ratterman and his YouTube channel to see the full thing.
Nice. Yeah, I'll get this uploaded like ASAP too. Mine are super easy. I don't edit anything out. I just upload them. So
I'm OCD. I gotta edit stuff, but
yeah.
Okay. So taxes, women, rent.
Nice.
The easiest things to reduce first are you got to reduce this is money. Like, so life coaching isn't very useful unless you incorporate money into it. You got to reduce your living expenses somehow. And the way I did it was house hacking. So I quit my career in 2017. 8 months later, I was making no money on I made $2.50 in 8 months on YouTube, and blew up $13,000 in my bank account, racked up $11,000 in credit card debt.
Nice.
Had a mortgage. Was 3 months away from bankruptcy and foreclosure, and then I basically had to look myself in the mirror and be like, "You don't know shit about money or finance or business or anything, and you don't know what you're doing." So that's when I set out to learn the stock market, which was how I learned to day trade in a week, which is now 5.7 million views, and I just crossed $200,000 revenue on that video.
Let's go. That's sick.
And then that's also the time period in which I made the 50 books, or I read the 50 books, which is now what I learned reading 50 books on money, which just crossed 850,000 views. But what I learned from those books was rich people have freedom. They have opportunity. They have free time to pursue opportunities. If you're working 40 to 60 hours a week, you can't jump on a plane to Thailand for a month. You can't go down to Tulum for a week. You can't jump in a semi and go to Austin for a week.
Yeah.
You can't do those things.
You don't have time freedom.
You have to figure out how to reduce your the amount of money it costs you to live per month. And the way I did that was at a young age with not a very little income, actually. It was house hacking. So I built my credit, and then I bought a property. I put like $5,000, $8,000 down, which is not a lot of money. It can be if you're 20, but it's honestly not. In the grand, if you think about the golden sphere of your entire life, it's not anything. So build that capital, and then I bought a property, and I essentially, this is a quick and dirty real estate course, is learn the 1% rule of real estate, which is you should be able to rent out the property for 1% of the total value you bought it for. I bought a property for essentially $100,000. It was a little more than that, which means I need to rent it out for $1,000 a month. The mortgage was $750. I had 3 rooms. I lived in one. I rented each room out for $450. That's $800. That covers my mortgage. I split utilities 3 ways. My utilities were $100 a month. Food was $400 a month. I'm free to do whatever the fuck I want every day.
That's epic.
Yeah,
that's fucking epic. And then that's while you're young with not a lot of money too. So that's the first thing.
No,
so
I was $13,000 in credit card debt.
Yeah. So once you do that, you're free, right? Now, let's just say you have time freedom. Then what are your, give me 3 actionable steps that you would do to hey, here's how to get out in the world and go network with people. Is it saying yes to opportunities? Is it traveling? Is it talking to random people on the street? Or Is it YouTube? Is it posting more on social media? Or like, what is your take on it, on what would be best?
The best thing that someone could do if they're relating to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, you already, I think you know it. It's what we do. Sales.
Sales, yeah.
It's like sales is, again, if you're long-term oriented, if your mindset is like, how do I add skills to myself? I wish I had gotten into sales when I was
That's the best skill you could have, man.
I can't believe I waited this long to get into sales.
You need it for every business and every opportunity you ever have your entire life.
If you're an entrepreneur, it's the hierarchy of money. So I'm kind of building I hate building a course and selling it, but there's just so much information on this stuff that it's hard to put it into YouTube videos. But there's 3 levels of income or wealth, and essentially there's a 4th one, which is credit. But the first is cash flow. You can learn everything you want about investing, but if you don't have no money and you don't know how to handle your money,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So you got to increase cash flow. Cash flow is king. Cash flow is number 1. The best way to increase cash flow is sales. You can learn a service, you can learn a specialty, a skill, you can go to college, but that comes with debt, that comes with time. Sales is something you can jump into, and literally it's a hard learning curve. It's difficult for some, but it's the biggest growth. I got into sales for personal growth, really, because it's like, how do I push myself? How do I make more money? How do I meet more people? How do I get good at doing this stuff? So cash flow is number 1. The second one is money funneling or tax funneling. That's where Ash, like tax specialist, comes into. And how do you take your cash flow and move it through the system that is the money game of America, and pay as little as taxes as possible, because taxes are the most expensive thing you're ever going to pay on. If you haven't watched my video, 50 Books on Money, and that explains how terrible taxes are.
I'll link that in these. I'll link your 2. All right, and the channel. Yep.
You're gonna give 7 to 10 years of your life to the government, essentially. Well, technically 7 to 15 years if you factor in weekends and holidays and stuff. So you're giving 20% or more of your life to the government, anyways, with taxes. But if you understand taxes and you understand how to move your money, Ash, have you talked to Ash yet? Have I introduced you to her? I need to introduce.
No, I haven't.
She says if you're making more than $400,000 a year, you should be paying 0% taxes.
Wow.
She has funnels and strategies, and runs the money through trust and foundations to reduce your taxes to 0. But the third level is investments, which is everybody starts on investments. That's where I started. I was like, I need to learn the stock market. Everybody that's good at the stock market is not broke. And I don't know anybody that's not broke in the stock market. So I was like, I'm going to learn that. But then you have no money because you're focusing on you're focusing on the last
You're not
step.
focusing on making money. You're focusing on putting your money to work, which is the opposite.
If I got lucky because I made YouTube videos on the stock market and it blew up, and that was my cash flow. But for the majority of people, that's not the reality. So I did cash flow from learning investing, but it was kind of like a fluke luck thing.
Yeah,
I don't like saying luck.
Rare.
It was there's a lot of struggle and time, but reversing, if I was just a normal person that's not doing YouTube or anything like that, I would immediately start with cash flow and sales and just cranking out as much money as possible, learning how to move that money into effective investments efficiently as possible with taxes, and then learning credit, and then funding the life that you want. Like if you have to know knowledge and you have to know things, but don't strategize and think too much. Just focus on step 1, step 2, step 3, and building cash as fast as possible, building your credit as fast as possible, reducing that income as fast as possible, and then getting out into the world and getting out into opportunities as fast as possible, because then it explodes. When you break that barrier, like if you draw 1 to 100, and 100 is like you at your best life with your most money, most people never proceed past like 10% because they don't. There's barriers. There's barriers of things you have to overcome to get to that version of yourself, and one of those is freedom, opportunity freedom. You have to be able to wake up and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to get there than you think. You just have to learn it. And once you get there, that barrier accelerates. Like it's a compounding interest. So I became free and then moved to Austin, Texas, met you, met Jacob, met Ash, met everybody else that I'm doing. And now
it's compounding and
my growth is exponential. Like my life is exponentially growing. And
that's the key.
It all comes down to having freedom. Yeah.
And I think that's so important. That's a phenomenal note to end on. I'm literally about to pee my pants.
I know. I don't try to drink when I'm doing podcasts.
Dude, I am dying. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I mean, we're going to have plenty more of these. And likewise, I'm sure on yours. So follow Garen on YouTube. Garen, what's your Instagram handle too?
Garen Phillips.
Phillips. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Easy branding.
Yeah, easy money. All right. I'll link all that stuff below. Hit all of the subscribe buttons and the like buttons. Hit all the buttons. Just no, but we'll see you guys in the next episode. And just check out Garen's YouTube channel. And then Garen, follow him on Instagram. That's probably where the best place is, so they can keep up with what you're doing.
Yeah, I try to be very active on Instagram, and I DM, I message everybody on if you have questions and stuff, shoot me a DM, and I'll get on you. Sometimes I'm slacking. It just depends on how busy I am. But do you want to just stop the recording and we'll chat for a little bit?
Yes. All right, guys, we're signing off. Peace.
Nice talking to you guys.